My name is Paula Vandervoort, and this is my animal communication breakthrough.
Paula, tell me about how you got started in this interspecies world.
Well, um, it wasn't something I expected. I serendipitously, I guess, got connected with a young psychic who was practicing his skills. And it wasn't something I was really looking for, but it just came across my path. And he was doing readings for people for free just to practice. And he told me about things that had happened before I was old enough to even remember, before he was born and in the 1950s. In fact, he told me I had a sister named Anne Marie, and I don't have a sister named Anne Marie, but he insisted. And then I found out that one of my sisters had actually gone by that name when I was a toddler, and we had never discussed it in the family, and she was blown away that somebody even knew that. So
Oh,
that and a number of other things that were just right on, absolutely accurate things. And it just made me want to learn more. So I ended up kind of going down a rabbit hole, and I thought, well, I want to learn about this. I've never heard of it, but I ended up studying things like clairvoyance and channeling and dowsing and energy healing and even things like Akashic records. And I wasn't very good at it, but I was interested, and so I practiced. And when I went to an animal communication workshop, I really hit my sweet spot there. I've been an animal person ever since childhood, but I never really thought I could communicate telepathically with them. But that's where I figured out that I could.
all right. So it just kind of led right into that. And did you drop the other things? Oh,
No, I think, it's all about the world of energy. And so that was just the icing on the cake to realize that all the interesting things I had been learning could be applied to telepathically communicating with animals.
mhm.
So no, I do. I still study it. I read books all the time and
Yeah.
go to workshops and I'm always learning.
Yep. Yeah. That's the best way. So you got into animal communication and started learning more about that, probably doing some practicing and classes and stuff. Did you get to a point where you hit that wall where you just like, wow, I can't get past this, or you had a big challenge in front of you?
Yeah, I most definitely did. I'm trained in science. I was on a path to become an animal health professional. I have a degree in animal science and biology, and I I guess my block was I never thought this stuff was real.
Mhm.
I thought that psychics, were wearing turbans and had crystal balls with neon signs, and I guess I needed to understand that there was a science behind it. I studied and I read books on everything I could get my hands on. I was really intrigued by people who could channel information and even write books that weren't from their own cache of information or the training they'd already had. So I think my biggest challenge was probably that my left brain is very active and I've got kind of a monkey mind. I mean, it's just constantly going, and I needed to learn to slow down. And I really actually needed to learn to meditate before I was able to really do anything with competence. I took meditation courses, and it really worked to help me calm my mind.
Mhm. So and and that's how that was your first big challenge then is your mind would not shut up without
Yeah, yeah. And I wasn't sure if what I was getting was my own thoughts
Oh, yeah.
or if it was some kind of intuition or messages from another world or God, or I wasn't sure. That I didn't really have any way to identify or verify that. But one thing I guess I've learned over time is that intuitive information feels very different than thinking does. It sounds different, feels different, it comes across much different. And so I had to learn to identify the differences. And for me, it's very, very fast. So, when I'm thinking, I tend to think things over a lot, and I might think about the same thing over and over. But when I'm doing animal communication or telepathy work, it just comes really fast. I mean, I can barely keep up with it. So that's for me what's different.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we'll get to your breakthrough now. What happened that finally enabled you to say, oh my gosh, I'm getting this now?
Well, it was a process. But if I had to pick one breakthrough moment, it was really a kind of a trial by fire that happened to me. I'd been working with a pretty well-known animal communicator. She was mentoring me, and she told me at one point that I was one of her best students and I should, quote, hang out a shingle. And that terrified me. But she convinced me to put up a kind of a minimal website, and she said to me, just set it up so you can take payments and the universe will do the rest. And my phone rang, and it was a lady that I didn't know who had a horse that was lost. And so I had her shoot me over a picture of it, and I saw her horse. And unfortunately, I actually saw that it had met an untimely death. And I was, again, terrified. I was afraid to say anything. And then I remembered that my mentor said to say what I get, no matter what. So I did. And I will say it was actually kind of traumatic for both of us, because she was looking for a lost horse, and I was telling her that her horse was no longer in a body and was in spirit, and gave her some information about that. And we ended up both crying, and we hung up, and I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? I traumatized this person. What if I'm wrong? And then a month later, I got a letter in the mail from her. She had verified the details I had given her and tracked down her horse and found out that what I had told her was correct. Oh, wow. And in that envelope was a check for my fee. And she ended up being a longtime repeat customer of mine. And it just opened me up to the possibility that even when you get information that isn't the most positive, that it still can be the truth, and you have to trust it, and you have to have faith in it.
Mm-hmm. Was your faith pretty rock solid after that? Was that kind of what sealed it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a number of events that were kind of like that. I mean, I think that one was the first and the most dramatic. I had a lot of situations where I just did a ton of practice. I practiced with anybody that was willing to allow me to practice, including, farmers who had goats and bison and, ducks and geese and dogs and cats and horses. And then I tried wild animals. I found that not all of them are willing to talk to us, because some of them are not very trusting of people. But the ones that are pretty darn cool. Mm-hmm. And I even talked to a spider. I mean, so yeah, I guess I got to the point where I completely trusted it. Although I will say that I've read, and this is probably my experience too, is that you're not 100% accurate at any skill that you have. Tiger Woods doesn't always hit the ball into the hole. And I've read that psychics or people who do this kind of work are at best maybe 80% accurate. And so if you trust the fact that you're not going to always be accurate, and don't try to get caught up in the minutia of it to verify that it's always perfect, that keeps you from missing the big message. I mean, because sometimes there's a big message in there, and if you're trying to figure out whether some little detail is right or not, you can miss that. So, um, yeah, that was probably my breakthrough, but it's been quite a process over the years, and a lot of little experiences like that too that I've been able to verify that the information was absolutely correct.
Hmm. That's so awesome. So where did it all lead you, or what are you doing right now with animal communication?
Well, I'm in, I'll always be in the animal world, and I'm very, very interested in and passionate about helping people to help their animals. So, where that has all led me is that I continue to do this professionally, and I run weekend intensives periodically, and I teach every once in a while here where I live. And I share this information as much as possible on the naturopathic lecture circuit. It's fun to um, include that when I'm teaching about holistic things for animals that can support them. So and I think that the more people that learn this, the more of a voice the animals are going to have.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your challenges and your uh, the sensitive side of what you went through before you're now doing this professionally. So we appreciate your wisdom and your insight and your experience.
Thank you. And I would just encourage anybody that thinks they can't do this to keep trying, because if I hadn't continued to try and practice, I never would have heard the things I needed to hear. And you just have to have an open mind about it
Yeah, just
and a
keep
lot of faith.